Hey everybody, Robert Dunt, uptop10.com. Here I am today at the Royal Academy, just about to go into the press view of Francis Bacon. And there's the building itself, just looking pretty cool as usual. Let's head in. I'm going to film most of this on the iPhone 13 Pro Max when we get in, but this is the GoPro Hero Black 10 at the moment while we're outside. Because I haven't quite got the mics all sorted out for the GoPro yet. But anyway, let's go and see what it's like. So here we are in Francis Bacon, Man and Beast. Just wandering into the very first little room here at the moment. Intriguingly, sets out to explore everything, how Bacon was, well, I suppose, what would you say? His kind of fascination with animals, observation of animals. I think it says he grew up on a stud farm in Ireland where hunting and horse breeding dominated everyday life. And so what he learnt about animals, how they fought, how they mated, how they died, how this is then put into his paintings. So I think it's a kind of exhibition that really covers how Bacon would use animals to talk about people. So sort of saying how Bacon's men are maybe a little unhuman, but his humans are far more descriptive. His animals are far more descriptive of what we as humans are like. Anyway, let's have a little stroll around, see what happens. I suppose these could be like horses over here on these ones, couldn't they? Kind of difficult to tell, but it's a horse related. Quite intriguing actually. I've never been a massive Francis Bacon fan, but actually quite enjoying these. They're actually quite, probably an awful thing to say about Francis Bacon, are actually quite pretty. Look at that one over there with a rather nice blue against the red. Incredibly dark, this room, with the dark walls, but I guess that is kind of vibe they're going for. The whole of this exhibition is incredibly dark actually. Anyway, this room is flesh, skin and bone. Bacon's early life and career occurred in parallel with the deadly wars that shaped the first half of the 20th century. The human capacity for extreme violence on a terrifying scale. It's actually quite the information on the wall here, saying that in 1944 his work gave birth to strange hybrid creatures, curious silvery bodies stretching out, crouching down or letting out primal screams. Taking inspiration from Pablo Picasso, these biomorphs explore what Bacon called organic form that relates to the human image, but is a complete distortion of it. Canine teeth, quadruped gaits, sweeping necks create that distortion, while a human ear or mop of hair lend familiarity. That's really quite a good description of that thing. Quite like the idea that they're distorting it. Intriguing. Okay, so we're just wandering into this big main room. This one's called Wildlife. There's a good sort of monkey over there. At least I think that's a monkey. We'll go and look at the monkey in a minute. You got lots of people scrabbling on beds, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a cool room as usual. Moving around. Oh, interesting how dark they've made the exhibition. Anyway, so it says here, Wildlife. By the 1950s, Bacon was an established artist. During this decade, he painted various animals, including dogs, owls, and chimpanzees in this gallery. Often the composition centers on a single animal in the manner of a portrait, underlining its human qualities. The howl of the caged chimpanzee registers emotional, even existential pain, while the empathetic study of a chimpanzee with its bold background unmistakably captures a thinking, feeling being. You got to say, this chimpanzee is fantastic. Look at it, completely insane. What a mad picture. Love it. Anyway, I move around here. Oh, this is a different chimpanzee, much darker. This. Look at his teeth. Got fine teeth coming out there. Oh, there's none of the horses, it says, it would appear. He built a library of wildlife books and magazines as part of the vast stock of images amassed in his studio. He also took opportunities to observe live animals, made trips to southern Africa. Interesting, I didn't know much he liked animals. He described being mesmerised by wild animals moving through the long grass. Interesting. makes him feel a much more kind of human kind of person. He's felt a bit distant to Bacon in a way. It always seemed a bit all about misery and horror, but it's quite interesting. He seems to have kind of a love of animals more than his love of humans, by the sound of it. That's a fine, weird dog. It's sort of disappearing by a grate. Coming on around here. Owls. What an extraordinary picture. Never would have thought he'd have painted owls. And there's another dog here. That's more of a kind of crazed, lurking in one of those weird landscapes he's got. Sort of feeling like some Tunisian landscape or something. And you've got some more. I don't know if that's. Work out what animal that's meant to be. And you're coming around here. You've got a nice kind of. It looks like racing animal galloping through something. Well, this one you can't tell. It looks like a sort of figure lurking in some undergrowth or something. And you come around here, and, something else lurking in the undergrowth. Intriguing, the undergrowth things. Then more of these men lurking in the undergrowth here. Intriguing though. I like the whole animal vibe to the thing. It's got quite a nice feeling to it. It says that Bacon painted dogs more than any other animal, often adapted from photographs of a mastiff walking. It's quite neat actually. They've got the photos here, so you can get a sense of which photos they're actually talking about, which is quite nice to balance that up against the painting beside it. I think it says the background here relates to like Monte Carlo, where Bacon lived for a while, going gambling. I'm always interested how Bacon and Lucian Freud were obsessed by gambling. Quite intriguing how they were obsessed with it, whatever it meant to them. Interesting. So it's a great story about Lucian Freud betting all this money on these dogs, and he won it all. He sort of couldn't bear it, and I think he then, for once, instead of squandering it or something, decided to go out and buy a big thing of all the most expensive paints he could. Anyway, a little off-piste on that bit there, but I think Francis Bacon was also obsessed with animals actually. I thought he was going to be a rider or something at some point. Anyway, let's move on to the next room. So here we are, what must be the third room of this exhibition. This one's called The Animal Within. Portraiture is central to Bacon's exploration of the human form. The disparate characters gathered in this gallery underline Bacon's broad definition of the genre. Some reveal Bacon's love of old master paintings, such as those derived from his obsessive interest in images of portrait of Pope X by the Spanish court. Others capture friends and lovers, bestowing them with distorted simian features. I couldn't quite work out how this room was relating to the animal theme of the exhibition, but it seems to say they've got like monkey features. Other captured friends and lovers, bestowing them with distorted simian features. I suppose there's a sort of monkey vibe in that one in front of us there. Rather than wielding power, these seated white-collared men resemble marionettes, so their faces peering out from stations of paint that look like the bars of a cage. In contrast to conventional use, the celebration of a person's prestige, or as it were, they're saying Bacon was using portraiture to scrutinise animality as a human trait. Probably a little bit stretched, actually, this room, I think. I mean, it's not quite as close to animals as the rest of it, but it's an interesting room though, it's good pictures. The composure of his sitters is shattered by the escape of a cry, grasp, grimace, or even uncontrolled laughter. The silent paintings evoke audible expressions in our mind's ear. Bacon's portraits strip away pretensions of even the highest stations of society, with the implication that status and success, the trappings of civilization, are merely a thin, fresh veneer, distinguish us from our non-human counterparts. Well, like I said, I think the animal bit is a bit stretched in this room, but paintings aren't bad at all. That one's quite animal monkey. But it's an interesting idea that he was using portraiture to circumvent or undermine traditional views. That is quite interesting. Let me wander around. They're quite intriguing. I actually quite like the weird boxes. Like this one here is stuck that. I don't know if that's a pope, but he's stuck him in a box in a kind of weird fashion. Probably has, yeah, one. But he's stuck in a box. Looks a bit uncomfortable. A study of the human head. Interesting, that one's got more like a jaw, I suppose you could say. It's kind of monkey jaw to it. Over here you've got that sort of scary face. Just looks more mangled. That one looks more mangled like the other one. But you got to say, it's a good room of these portraits. I do like the idea of the portraits being, instead of being to show off somebody, it's to make them look weird. You obviously got that cool screaming Pope over there. And let's keep on strolling and head into the next room. So this room is called Bodies in Motion. And it's about Bacon being fascinated by the tradition of movement into static imagery and the times like photographs of Edward and Muybridge. More interesting actually is that once again it says down here that this is Bacon speaking. As he stated, I look at animal photographs all the time because animal movement and human movement are continually linked in my imagery and movement. I'm interested actually how much he's fascinated by animals. So it's saying that he used the Muybridge photographs as like a visual dictionary of motifs, which we use with other stimuli. Quite interesting how you might take a position from a Muybridge figure and then refer to sculptures by Michelangelo for the ampleness, the grandeur of form, or distort the pose by amalgamating it with a photo from a wildlife magazine. I find that quite a mixture of things, blurring them up is quite interesting. Especially the wildlife magazine bit. I think it's interesting. Some of these things. This one claims here that Muybridge photographs sometimes reprise well-known classical subjects. The ape-like gait of the left-hand figure derives its low swinging arm from the discobolus or discus thrower, poised before the whirling motion of the throw. Possibly it does. These things I always find a bit... I think whether or not it's a bit stretched, it's quite fun to try and analyse these things in this way. That's definitely got a good monkey vibe to it. But that's just a pretty weird thing, basically, isn't it? And then this is one more of those kind of photos of two figures as they are. But more interestingly here, you've got the Muybridge photos. That relate to it here, so you can see the figures rolling and fighting. It's quite nice to see how these things relate back to his pictures. Quite interesting actually. You can return repeatedly to particular images. Muybridge's study of men wrestling provided the foundation for numerous compositions in a legitimate context in which Bacon can paint erotic subjects prior to the partial decriminalisation of homosexuality in 1967. Seems extraordinary now that it was illegal, doesn't it? Right. That's people sort of guy in a shower. I don't know why for a moment it did have a sort of animal monkey vibe to it. But on down here, I do find the little weird cubes. I like the cubes you paint around them, quite interesting. But that's a study of a nude. Quite intriguing, some of these paintings. They're more subtle than I remember for Bacon. Obviously that's a good one over there. I like those circles, almost like somebody's head's being reflected in a mirror, like a weird room. Quite like it when he's got these kind of weird rooms that he's painting in. I think actually what they don't really talk about Bacon quite likes, actually the space in the paintings is genuinely quite fascinating the whole time. Like this one, you've got a sort of, that black background is very flat, and that green grass in more sense for space. You get a real trapped space. Okay, so the room we're in now is called the animalistic nude. Bacon's pursuit of the figurative was against the grain. Quite interesting. In the wake of movements including abstract expressionism and minimalism, painting was primarily abstract. So it's interesting to think he was going against the grain of abstraction. I didn't really know that. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Bacon dismissed this as purely aesthetic. I don't know what I mean by that. I suppose I mean he dismissed as abstract or figurative was an aesthetic, so a decision based on what you liked, I suppose, what they're trying to say. He was interested in realistic illustration. He wanted his paintings to have an immediacy that activated the senses ahead of conscious understanding, whereas he says to unlock the values of feeling and therefore turn the onlooker to life more violently. His nudes cast aside the tradition of adulation and desire. I'm not sure that's entirely true. So there's a lot of desire in them. Gender is often ambiguous. Unlike the figures of the 1950s, obscure and dark and void, these bodies burst forth against bright backgrounds, adopting contorted poses or scrawling across beds. Oh, he developed ideas for sculptures, but never realised them. Didn't know that. Quite intriguing. His thoughts about plasticity and spatial relationships instead emerged in his paintings. I think I do think he has got a real spatial ability. I don't actually like these pink ones so much. There's a weird, it's like there's people standing on a weird sort of, I don't know, big piece of spaghetti. But these things, I do, the space in the paintings is amazing. Like this one over here, you've got a good, curious dropping sofa, and that actually is kind of a weird animal lurking on the edge of a dropping sofa. And this space here, they're almost like figures on, can't help feeling they're like figures in a kind of, not a circus, in like, almost like in a play. There's something almost kind of stylized about the way they're in these unrealistic but realistic situations, which I find quite interesting. That it's a bit like I think when Laurence Olivier did Henry V, they purposely made all the backgrounds very, very stylized and brightly coloured, unrealistic in a way, so that the language of Shakespeare seemed more normal within the film. Interesting room there. Again, I have no idea if these are mega Bacon pieces or not. The other thing I find quite surprising is that considering Bacon was hanging around getting drunk most of the time, apparently, he seems to have prolific output. I mean, he's a lot of big paintings in these rooms. I mean, it's going to take you quite a lot of effort to produce these. And all those figures are quite, worked with the colours. I mean, you're not going to pop them out overnight. These things are going to take a lot of time and effort. It's also a huge exhibition, actually. Some masses of Bacon stuff. Right, let's wander on into this room. Okay, so this room is called the Bullfight. It's quite intriguing, actually. It brings together 3 bullfighting paintings that Bacon did in his lifetime, but never exhibited together. So I'm not sure if they're meant to be a triptych or not, but either way, they weren't exhibited together in his lifetime. It's the first time they've been brought together, which is quite fun. Always interesting to see how artists deal with these different motifs. Bacon said, bullfighting is like boxing, a marvellous aperitif to sex. That's meant to be a joke, typical of Bacon's provocative humour. His words sum up the close links between violence, voyeurism and eroticism. He believed the controversial tradition exposed inconsistent attitudes towards animals. He found it illogical that people who condemn bullfighting as cruel might still wear furs and feathers. Intriguing, isn't it? I think the most interesting things it actually talks about is the sense of space in these pictures, which again I find, I'm probably a more abstract artist, I do find the abstract qualities of the pictures very interesting, such as the strange, and this one's got a weird space, you've got another sort of oval, and then you've got that weird, it's almost like it's in a kind of weird tiny circle, which is strange obviously because bullfighting takes place in a massive arena, but Bacon's made it a tiny little sort of horrible, miserable place. Well, he had only went to a few bullfights, I suppose he did like animals, but owned numerous postcards and books, in which photographs captured the dance-like motion of the fight. The dynamism is intensified by a brightly coloured, imagined arena that is artificially small compared to the protagonists. But I do find quite interesting just how small it is in relation to what's taking place in there. So we roll on. I mean, certainly as far as reviewing the exhibition, I think this is a good room. It's interesting. In 2 paintings, a strange concave screen reveals a feverish crowd who mirror our status as onlookers. Above, a red banner with hints of an eagle recalls the imagery of the Nazi dictatorship. I'm not sure about that. Paintings raise the questions about spectacle, entertainment, terror and power, and an individual's capacity to become lost in an anonymous mob or herd mentality. I mean, I don't really think that's part of it. I mean, to tell you the truth, okay, so it is a kind of Nazi symbol in there, But beyond that, actually, the crowd in the background is almost like a crowd on a convex sort of 4K TV screen. It's very stylized again. I find the stylization in these pictures quite extraordinary. It's a very odd crowd. I mean, I don't agree with all the stuff that's read about how it get lost in the whole herd mentality, but I actually think the stylization and the sort of weird anonymity of the crowd is almost being it's there, but it's this one has got the same white thing, but it's not painted in. Maybe just can't be bothered to finish it. But it's still got a number 4. What a number 4? Oh, these two. Those two have both got 4, and the other one's got 5 on it. Not entirely sure why. But the crowd is a weird thing, especially as it seems like a fake TV crowd. Actually makes the sort of, I'd say it's actually distancing the crowd, saying the relevance should be placed on the actual, the bull and the human. Seems to be saying they're the most important bits, and the crowd is kind of irrelevant, almost just a background thing to what's taking place centre stage. This room is called Triptychs, and not a surprisingly big room actually, lots of stuff. Actually, they're leading you through these galleries in a different way to you would normally go in like the summer exhibition, aren't they? I think you normally come to this one last, but you're coming around this in a different way today, which actually is almost a more effective route through the galleries. Anyway, so this one's saying Bacon had used the triptych structure as early as 1944, sometimes made small format triptych portraits to represent different angles on the same sitter. In the 1960s, the large-scale triptych became increasingly important to Bacon, enabling complex compositions with multiple figures that could address major themes whilst avoiding a narrative scene that would fall in the trap of illustration. Interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm I disagree with that, but I do think I would have said a triptych allows a narrative. I'm not sure it stops you falling into. Does it stop you falling into illustration? I don't know. Where's the animal? The animals have got a bit lost in this one so far, I think. Could address major themes while avoiding a narrative scene. I think the triptychs are directly narrative. Anyway, the title of Three Figures in a Room 1964 points to the temporal ambiguity of the triptych, as each panel depicts the same sitter with independent yet linked impressions acting at once. I'm not actually sure which picture that is. Oh, it is this one here on the left. Bacon exploited this each depicts the same sitter with independent yet linked impressions acting at once. Bacon exploited this simultaneity in order to address his most deep-rooted subjects, mortality and the futility of life. His determination to avoid narrative seems at odds with his interest in mythological stories, which is quite interesting. Yet they played a central role in triggering his imagination and his frameworks to make images of the sensations he felt when reading. The Oresteia, a trilogy of plays by the ancient Greek writer Aeschylus, was a key inspiration. The drama explores themes of guilt and vengeance, represented by the Furies, female goddesses that appear in Bacon's paintings as hybrid human-animal forms. So I think that must be one of these things over here. And Bacon was haunted by the line, "The reek of human blood smiles out at me." And the vivid aesthetic qualities of blood are pronounced in many triptychs of the 1980s. These are the 80s. Gosh, can't quite believe that. You have got, I mean, this weird. This is one of the ones I think. There's a human animal form. It seems to be a really weird fish. I mean, it's actually almost comic. That strange fish. Quite bizarre. Oh, Roger Terry, Peace and Life, Nature Library, the birds, showing diving pelicans. The centre pelican on the left was used by Bacon for the Fury in the left-hand panel. The centre pelican on the left. Oh, was used for that. It doesn't look like a pelican here. It still looks like a weird bird. The Fury, creature of vengeance. Oh, that is meant to be the Fury. It's rather a friendly little Fury, I think. It looks like a little happy thing. Little happy, strange fish hopping out of the sky. It's funny. I don't think it looks like it's going to wreak vengeance or revenge. So this room's got some big triptychs in it. Whatever. These pictures of his lover. Oh, I've forgotten her name already. Pictures of his lover. George Dyer. He died just before a big exhibition of Bacon's. I think it was in Paris, wasn't it? Of an overdose. Yeah, it was in Paris. This big exhibition was about to happen. Apparently these are his black triptychs. Attempting to exercise the loss and guilt he felt in this series. These black triptychs. I mean, that's a good picture there. I can't quite tell. I can't quite get over there at the moment. If that weird little creature on the right hand side is one of these furies. And look at that weird little creature in the centre. It's absolutely hysterical. It's so beautiful. It's an absolutely adorable little sweet little thing with its head upside down. These furies, I don't know. I mean, I suppose they're meant to be scary or violent or mean or weird, but they just look terribly friendly to me. Absolutely adorable little things. They obviously got a lot of these weird sort of spinal bits and mangled bodies and all this sort of stuff, and then over here, people on the loo, those sort of, bacony. I almost find those a bit more cliched. I actually find it more interesting when you haven't quite got this sort of, futility of life kind of thing. I find that a bit cliched, and a bit cliched how everybody responds to it so desperately. It's like, oh, Bacon, amazing. Even the G's Emerge, my favourite band, stuck Francis Bacon on the front of one of the guitarist William Reed out of the G's Emerge stuck Francis Bacon on one of these pictures, on one of his album covers, sorry, which I always thought was a bit cheesy. People are always like, oh, I've seen Francis Bacon, it's blown my mind. I mean, in a way I always think it's because it's doing such a known kind of, theme of misery and futility and death. It's not a new one, is it? So I'm always surprised when people go on about it so obsessively. Second version of Triptych. Oh, it is the Furies again. Oh, they're absolutely sweet, these little Furies. They're adorable little creatures hopping around. Look at that one with his little funny teeth. Anyway, they do seem animal though, which is quite interesting. Animal they seem. Not much animal in this room though. I'm drifted off from the animal bit here. I suppose this is man and beast. Maybe this is meant to be man in here. Okay, so here we are in the last room. Sorry, I'm whisking this thing around a bit. I'm looking forward to trying this with the GoPro at some point. This one's called After the Bullfight. The Bullfight paintings of 1969 encapsulated Bacon's meditation on the blurring of man and beast. Possibly. Not entirely sure that's true. I don't think it was a meditation on it. Anyway, nearly 2 decades later, he made his only triptych on the subject. Here the excitement's over, leaving behind the wounds of the matador, the bowed head and bloody horns of the bull, with a special fury hovering above. Where's the fury? Oh yeah, one of the weird little creatures. They're so sweet, those little creatures. I know they're meant to be, but it just looks incredibly friendly, hopping down to say hello. How extraordinary. Oh, that's rather good, that bull picture over there. That's brilliant, actually. Really weird, because it's like a bull, sort of half real, half painted. I can't help thinking all these things are like, even that bull is like an actor on a stage. All these pictures have a real stage feel to them, which I think is quite interesting. Anyway, I lost it there for a minute, from the yeah, so this is obviously a much more depressing kind of bullfight thing. What year are these paintings done? Just go and have a quick look. This is done in 1987. So much later. It's a weird painting in all honesty. So after the bullfight, I suppose it's, and everybody's been massive. Bacon was convinced there is an area of the nervous system to which the texture of paint communicates more violently than anything else. His fascination with the physicality of our bodies and the unmoderated behaviour of animal were touchstones for his art. An animal became the subject of Bacon's final painting, study of a bull, which is rather good, that poem. The use of dust as a medium offers a potent sign for mortality, although for Bacon represented permanence too. While dust seems to be eternal, seems to be the one thing that lasts forever. So if we go back to this other one here, we're invoking the aftermath of the bullfight. There's something else that's quite interesting on that on the text on the wall here. It says, Bacon may have had in his mind Federico Garcia Lorca's 1935 poem Lament for Ignacio Sanchez and Mejias, with its repeated refrain at 5 in the afternoon, which readers of the poem discover as the time of day when the young bullfighter dies. Interesting. This one here doesn't grab me so much, but that bull painting's fantastic. Really good. Right, have a little wander back through the whole thing. I'm going to get out the GoPro, see what it's like on that as we wander through, see if it's better or worse, and get a bit of a overall vibe, give us a roundup of what you think of the exhibition. So we're going to have a little stroll through this exhibition with the GoPro, just to see if it works better or worse than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Should give you a bit more stability. We've got a slightly more fisheye kind of look at it, but let's see what happens. I haven't got a microphone set up properly on this yet, but let's just have a little roam round, see if it feels better or worse on this. Now, I know we've been through the show, but let's go for the highlights. I found this pink monkey was really good fun, and I actually really enjoyed it. I'm going backwards, but back to this other room here. I actually rather liked this painting here. I thought it was actually rather nice for baking. It's actually really pretty. I really like the green on the orange. I thought it had quite a sort of colour thing to it. It's actually almost like blue on orange. By the way, it's kind of really cool. I like that. It's got a nice, when you get up close to it, it's quite scrappy. But it works well as a painting. Interesting. I'm always fascinated about paint is put on. Anyway, this is just meant to be a quick sort of review, so certainly I found that, obviously the whole thing's meant to be about man and beast, meant to be about bacon being inspired by animals, which actually is genuinely quite interesting. It makes you feel a bit more, sometimes you can feel he's a bit mean on the world and everything, but actually the whole animal thing, kind of cool. You've got a nice dog there, well, okay, sort of slightly disturbed, weird dog running in a road or something, but mad dog on the stage here. Kind of fun. And as you stroll on through, we're going a bit high speed on this one because the film has probably already lasted far too long. As we stroll along, I quite like the whole animal vibe when you get in here. This one's pretty funky rooms. I like this room here. You've got these crazy kind of screaming priests, which are always good fun, aren't they? Screaming away, having a bit of a mental, they're always entertaining. Especially that purple one there, he's a tracker. I like it, that's the one you want to look at. Good stuff, stuck in a box screaming. I mean, you've got to say they've got a pretty good selection of stuff they've managed to drag in here. This one, this has still got quite a nice animal vibe to it. I suppose you could say, these, quite like this one, whether you've sort of got these people that are mixed with animals and you can talk about how you like looking at animals walking around the grass. That's actually quite interesting. Then into here, I actually find the later stuff. I don't like the later stuff. I don't really like as much as the earlier stuff. Although I quite like this bullfighting room. I think this one's actually quite cool. I like these bullfights here. I like it as the bullfight goes on. Over to here, you've got this kind of mad orange thing, like a filmic kind of background to it. The filmic, I find it fascinating how the audience is sort of stuck on the edge of this thing as you wander through. I do like that. You stroll on in here, there's one picture you can't film in here. So some of this footage I might replace earlier when I'm chatting, because the one on the right that I actually filmed talking about, can't film that one, so I need to cut that out of the thing. Actually, this is a super whistle-stop tour, but I mean, it's actually, they've got together a lot of cracking stuff. Surprising how much bacon did, and overall I think it's a pretty good show. If you're into bacon, you probably love that and go completely mental. It does show his sort of progression of work. This one of his bull, his last painting, is absolutely brilliant little painting. Really weird, fascinating thing, just really enjoyable. They did it really well. So, overall, I think it's a cracking show. Definitely worth coming to see. Particularly, I think it's quite like, for me, like I said before, I always find a lot of the, bacon, isn't he miserable, sort of stuff, always a bit cliche. So I find it quite nice to think of him as a guy who actually liked animals and was interested in animals, and I find it puts a slightly, more human tint on his person, or sort of a more, sensitive side to him. I think it's a bit more interesting. Certainly some of these early paintings, when you're back through this room, I think they're really good. They're really nice, and they've got great colours, and of course I always think it's amazing space. Genuinely weird space in his pictures. Look at this one, this green and black one, the space in that is absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre, so in your face but also spacious. And then these weird rooms, we've almost got like heads reflected on coffee tables, a bit like some kind of Ben Nicholson thing. But it's fascinating, so overall, really good fun. I think you should enjoy it if you come. And they've certainly managed to amass together a huge amount of stuff that's quite interesting. And the animal bit is cool, so come along and enjoy. So, as ever, like and subscribe, and also like and subscribe my other channel, Travel Dog. Au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen, Hadarfus, cheerio, bye bye everybody.
Bumbuckler.